look at another example of using the distance formula. We're going to look at the ordered pair of a negative 1.2 and 4.5, and then the ordered pair of a 3.8 and 1.5. So again, I'm going to label these as x1, y1, x2, y2. But this time, instead of doing it with the x2 and y2 first, I'm actually going to do it with the x1 first. So I'm going to do a negative 1.2 minus a 3.8 squared plus a 4.5 minus a 1.5 squared. I'm going to take the square root of all of that. This will give me my distance. Now, negative 1.2 minus a 3.8, this should give me a negative 5 squared, plus 4.5 minus 1.5 will give me a 3 squared. So negative 5 squared gives me a positive 25. 3 squared gives me a positive 9. We add those together and we get the square root of 34. Which again, I want to look at the exact. Well, square root of 34 isn't going to break down any. Okay, so that is our exact value. An approximate value would be 5.83. Now I want to look at one other one, and this one is going to have some radicals already in it, and so we need to discuss how to handle those radicals. We're going to look at a negative 6 square root of 3, comma, square root of 6 for our first point, and our second point is going to be negative square root of 3, comma, 2 square root of 6. So now as I begin to set this up, I'm going to take my x values and I will subtract those. So I'm just going to say negative 6 square root of 3 minus a negative square root of 3. We're going to square that quantity. Plus, and then we'll take our y values. We have the square root of 6 minus 2 square root of 6 quantity squared. And I'm going to take the square root of all of this. That's going to give me my distance. Now, whenever you are working with radicals already, one thing to think about is these two radicals are the exact same. If underneath the radical was not the same, we couldn't combine them. It's just like combining like terms where you have an x plus an x, or a y and a y. Okay? We can combine them as long as they're the same. We cannot combine them if they are different. So for this first one here, I'm going to take this and make it a positive. And what's the understood coefficient here? Well, that's a positive 1. So think of this as being negative 6x plus a 1x, and we combine those coefficients. So negative 6 plus a 1 is going to give me a negative 5 square root of 3. This quantity is going to get squared. Plus, and we're going to do the same thing, think of this as an understood 1. So I've got a 1y minus a 2y. So that's going to give me a negative square root of 6 squared. And you'll notice that I have not dropped off the major square root here. Now, as I work with this, these two things are multiplied. So what I have to do is I have to square the negative 5 and I have to square the square root of 3. So you can separate it into negative 5 squared times the square root of 3 squared. Negative 5 squared is going to give me a positive 25. The square root of 3 squared is actually going to give me a positive 3. And then if I look at this, negative times negative is going to give me a positive. Square root of 6 squared is going to give me a positive 6. And so 25 times 3 will give me 75 plus 6. And I need to draw that radical over both items to make sure that we aren't forgetting anything. And let's see here. So I'm going to get 75 plus 6 is going to give me an 81 square root. So I get a distance of 9. So pay attention to those radicals. Practice some of the square roots. And if you have questions, let me know.